What's good, y'all? So this is how I made $344 trading the NASDAQ futures today. So let's get right into the chart. So first things first, always looking at the daily chart to start our analysis. The first thing you'll notice, we've been trading, I've been saying it time and time again, but we've been trading inside of this daily SIBI for the last 2 weeks or so. And so we've been showing a willingness to kind of invert it and get higher. Yesterday, we closed above the midpoint and near the top of it. So going into today, my bias has still been bullish. We've had this larger time frame SMT here as well with the S&P 500, meaning the S&P 500 has taken this low while the NASDAQ has failed to take this low. So that being said, going into today, I was looking for longs. We also did have this small daily BISI that was created. So that is now telling me that order flow is now changing from bearish into bullish order flow on a larger time frame. So I was looking for, going today, I wanted to see a sweep of some sort of sell side liquidity, an SMT, and a change of state of delivery with an inversion. And if I got that, that's my motto I look for every day. If I got that, then I look for opportunity to take long. If I didn't, I wasn't going to take a trade today at all, just because it's non-farm payroll data came out today. So that's extremely notoriously pretty volatile data, economic data. So, and today it was. I'll kind of show you that on the lower time frame. But that was a couple of things I was looking at on the daily chart that kind of made me lean towards the bull side today. So looking at the hourly, this is kind of how the market looked going into our 9 a.m. hour. You can see that we were still trading inside this daily SIBI. Like I said, we had inverted this hourly fair value gap here. We had also, want to point out, within this range from this impulse move Wednesday to this high here, which actually got adjusted once we made a new high this morning, which I'll show you in a second. But we were within the premium of this range as well. So going into today, I needed to see some sort of sweep of liquidity in order to validate a long, right? So we had sell side liquidity that was created here from the non-farm payroll data. All right, so that was one thing I was watching to see if we could make a willingness to go down there to take that first, or maybe the market was just going to rip and not really give me an opportunity to get in long. We also had these lows here from Thursday that validated some a potential long spot. And then we had some liquidity down here as well. So, and this low was right above this daily SIBI. So that was a pretty good, indication that if we did trade down there, it'd be a good opportunity to play long, right? We also had this buy side liquidity here, right? So maybe the market was going to potentially run this liquidity and then go lower. So it was a bunch of scenarios, but I know in order for me to validate a long setup, I need to see a few certain things. Like I said, we need to sweep some lows. We need to have some sort of inversion. We need to have some sort of change of state of delivery, and our order flow needs to change from bearish to bullish, right? And so that's kind of what I was looking for. We also had this buy side here, I should point out, from the non-farm payroll data. So a bunch of pools of liquidity going into today. So the important thing on these kinds of days is just being patient. Don't try to force anything. Wait for the market to show you what it really wants to do. Do we want to take out buy side and go to sell side? Do we want to take out sell side then go to buy side? So that's kind of what we look like going into 9 a.m. So going into that 10 a.m. hour, you can see we did sweep the non-farm payroll data highs, right? That was this 8:30 a.m. high. We had the non-farm payroll data lows down here. And this was that high that I had mentioned from the 31st, I believe, on that Friday, the 31st, which we didn't really sweep. To me, this is not considered a sweep of liquidity. This is equal highs to me. I mean, that's a very shallow sweep. So to me, that's telling me the market wants to run those highs again at some point. So that's something that made me pretty bullish as well. So we kind of consolidated up here, and then we had a huge dump And then going into the 10 a.m. hour, we had a huge flush because we had some economic data that came out. We had the consumer sentiment, or the consumer confidence. What was it? Let me check. It was the consumer sentiment, and also the inflation expectations. So that, although it's orange folder data, that tends to be pretty volatile, right? So you want to make sure, again, on these type of days when you have non-farm payroll, generally you will also have this consumer sentiment data as well, and inflation expectations. So I generally like to wait until after 10 a.m. if I am going to take a trade, because look at this drop. This was just 67 points on the candle, but this candle went from, we opened at 904 down to 790, right? That's 114 points on that one 1 minute candle. So you can see that's extremely volatile. So going into the 10 a.m. hour, the market did trade lower. Again, remember we had the liquidity here. I do want to point out also this range that I have marked, now that range high becomes this high, because that's now the high of this impulse move. The one that I had marked out down here. So this impulse move now, that the 50% of this range, which is discount, was now from this high to this low. So you have to adjust that. So yes, and once we hit that 10 a.m. hour, you can see there was never really any opportunities here for any trade for my setup. I mean, you could have probably taken a short, but I wasn't really interested in that. Like I said, I had a long buy, so I want to stick to it. So as we traded lower, we did trade into this sell side liquidity pool that was here, as well as this daily BISI, as well as the discount of that impulse move range, right? So the 50% of that. And then we also had an SMT here, right? This low was not taken yet by the NASDAQ. So I knew if anything, we could get a small bounce or small retracement, if anything, and I could, probably catch a little bit, but I wasn't sure that we would retrace all the way back to this buy side liquidity just from these lows. So I wasn't really looking for that. So what I was really looking for at this point, we had this again, we have to wait until we trade into a higher time frame PD array, right? So if I'm looking for longs, I want to see the sweep of liquidity. I want to see us trade into a higher time frame discount array. In this case, we have this daily BISI, as well as the 50% of this range that we had, right? So that's two higher time frame arrays that I was really liking. And then I need to see us to now order flow to now change from bearish to bullish on a lower time frame, meaning we need to start seeing some inversions and a change in state of delivery, right? So this opening price on that candle would now be a potential change in state of delivery that I was watching for if we got it, right? At this point, that's where the change in state of delivery would be, right? But that can change as price action changes, right? But at this point, I would need to see this inversion and us to run this high and then pull back, and then I could buy. So that's kind of what I was watching for. So you can see we hold this daily BISI pretty nicely there. So that really, to me, was really nice. That told me that we could definitely go higher. So trade it into the midpoint of this 1 minute SIBI as well. Again, that tells me, since we can't even hold the midpoint of it, that tells me we are really strong here. So I really like that. And then we got this pullback here back into the daily BISI. And then from here, we did end up forming an order block here. So this ultimately ends up being our change in state of delivery here and our order block that I was watching for. And again, that's why you have to wait for price to show you things, because things change. Although, yes, I wanted to see it up here, this would be now the change in state on the 5 minute, right? So I would like to see that on the 5 minute. But first, before you get it on the 5, you have to get it on the 1, right? And so on the 1, we had it here. So once I saw this candle closed, not quite, and we didn't quite invert this fair value gap, but I was very confident that this was now going to hold as an inversion, right? And now I just would want to see the midpoint and this order block hold, right? So we also had the 1020 to 1040 macro, which which was starting. So if you don't know, there's always a macro between 1020 to 1040 when the algorithm is either seeking liquidity, it's looking to rebalance price, or it's looking to potentially generate liquidity, or even trade to the discount of a certain range or premium of a range, depending on what's happening. That's a time frame when I like to enter trades. I don't like to enter trades outside of macro windows. So we do validate this inversion here. We get a retest of this order block here. And then once the macro opens, we do come down and I buy 5 contracts long here with, is it gonna fill me? Yep, I bought 10. Okay, let me do that again. I bought 5 contracts long here, stop loss to start off below this order block, right? So I'm below this order block and this inversion. So at this point, this is the midpoint of the inversion. This is the order block, and we have the bottom of this inversion. So if we're truly gonna go higher, we should hold this order block here, right? If order flow is truly bullish now, there's no reason for us to come back down here, right? We already got an SMT. There's no reason. Yeah, we could come sweep below again, but I don't want to see that happen. So I could set my stop loss there and then targeting either this change in state here, right, initially, or potentially even there was a 5 minute SIBI up here as well. So you could have targeted either of those. This is low hanging fruit though. Take that. And so then from here, we want to see if the market is going to respect now bullish order flow. So you can see we are respecting it. Then we do form this propulsion block here, right? A propulsion block is essentially an order block on an order block. So now I want to see us retest this and go higher, right? And then from here, we do end up missing this propulsion block barely, which honestly, I didn't really love the fact that we missed this propulsion block. Because I knew because we missed it, we were going to definitely come back and test it, but I didn't know how far we would go. And I know generally I like to trail my stop. So at this point, once we got that, I moved my stop to break even here because now we have plenty of things to potentially hold us, right? We have this propulsion block and we have the top of this order block and we have this inversion to keep us from going lower. So if we're bullish, we shouldn't come back down to this midpoint. So from here, I know actually I had sold 3 contracts up here. So I'll show you that. We traded a little bit higher here. I think we pulled back a little bit and then we still missed that propulsion block. And then once we traded up here, right into this change in state here, I ended up actually scaling off of 3 because I didn't like the fact that we didn't have a willingness to test this order block here, these down close candles. So I sold 3 here, sold 3 of my position there. And then I had 2, moved my stop loss above here, right? Because from here, I want to see, yes, we have this propulsion block here. And in hindsight, I wish I probably would have kept my stop loss at break even, but I was looking to really just be done. So I know at this point, I got stopped out there on my last 2 and I made about $340 after commissions. And again, order flow hasn't necessarily changed. Yes, we had this order block that I was hoping would hold. That's why I had my stop loss here. I wanted to see this order block hold, but we still had this propulsion block here. We still had this inversion and we still had this order block and we still had the midpoint of this inversion as well, right? The consequent encroachment. So looking at this, we test the propulsion block perfectly, right? We hold the inversion and we do end up kind of generating some liquidity here. And ultimately we do end up running this high here and the 5-minute SIBI that we created here. So you can see this was a great trade. I just was a little aggressive with my stop loss movement. I probably should have kept it at break even, but you know, I was happy with, you know, the 300 and so dollars that I made. Be done for the week and move on. I'm really just trying to slowly build this account I'm working on. I'm not really trying to hit home runs or super big trades, $300, $400, $500 trades. Keeping my losses small, that's kind of my mindset and mentality. But you can see we had respected the order flow here every single time we came down here, right? I want to point out also, we also had the mean threshold of this. We also had the mean threshold of this propulsion block here, right? This level from the opening price to the low, that's the mean threshold. notice we didn't even have a willingness to go back below the mean threshold of this propulsion block, right? So to me, that's all very bullish, and that's why I had pretty like confidence to hold this trade. Again, all the confirmations I had, we had the higher time frame discount array, which was the daily SIBI. We had a sweep of sell side liquidity. We had the SMT. We had 50% of that range that we traded into, right? And so at that point now, it's just watching the price action and seeing, are we respecting or disrespecting bullish and bearish order flow. So that's all I got for y'all in this one. I will see y'all in the next one.